Welcome back to MPL Weekly. I'm Becca Scott, here with Ben Stark and Cedric Phillips. And we've been seeing some amazing things in the Pearl Division today. And at the end of today, we're going to see just one player advance to Day 2 of the Mythic Championship 7, just straight on through. Ben Stark, as an MPL member, how much does that mean?
Oh, it means a ton. I mean, as a longtime pro, you basically, I mean, everyone might be different on this, but for me personally, I basically view all my Pro Tour now Mythic Championship top 16s as like good finishes, whereas like a min cash is like a consolation prize. There's nothing wrong with it. The Pro Tour, the Mythic Championship's hard, but if you're a longtime pro and you get 43rd place, you're not thinking back about that like you're proud of it or something.
Right.
But your top 16s, those are the finishes that are like, they're good finishes. Like, it's not, the top 8 gets all the coverage, but you know, when you look back at your 12th place finish, you're proud of that. So, I mean, starting in the second day of a Mythic Championship is huge. I don't know how to say it any other way than that. I mean, it's enormous.
Sure, and it's almost like you get 2 shots at it. You get a chance here in our course split, and then you get another chance at the actual Mythic Championship to make it to those top slots. Yeah, so Cedric, it's great to have you back. You're in the play-by-play seat for this match.
I'm back at home where I'm used to after 7 years of doing it. You get to be the expert. You okay?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be P Sully anytime. That's a good place to be, right?
There are worse spots. But no, very quickly, you mentioned how important it is to just transition into day number 2 right away and be a top 16 finish. And what that means when you're a pro, if you get 11th place, 12th place in a high-level event, that's a really, really big deal. And we saw players, as you mentioned, Becca, who had to do it from the very beginning when we were in Vegas, have to scrap and claw all their way through. Or we saw someone like Brad Nelson who was just transitioned right there and took the utmost advantage of it. So this is chance number 1 for players to get there. We're down to 3 players right now. We're going to be working ourselves down to 2. I'm excited to see who it's going to be.
And I think that does a lot for your mindset going into it. If you already feel like a little bit of a champion, then, the way is paved. So let's see the bracket of what we've done so far today and where we're going to end up. Cedric, would you like to talk us through?
I'm more than happy to. I mean, Carlos Ramal, he won over his good friend Marcio Carvalho earlier in the day. Marshall and I got to cover that Vampire Mirror, and then I know that Marshall and you, Ben, got to watch Autumn Burchett take care of Andrew Cuneo. Boros Feather is out, Mono Red Aggro is through. And more importantly for Autumn, the reason that they chose to play this deck was to get an edge on Orzhov Vampires. So they got the matchup they wanted. They have the opportunity to play this matchup multiple times on their way to potentially winning this pro split. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I love what Autumn did. This is an excellent choice by them. I think that if you're expecting to play vampires, then you have your own little creatures and your efficient removal to take care of their vampires. You have a clear advantage.
Goblin Chain Whirler, very, very good in the matchup. Just a lot of cheap interaction.
Yeah, we can see their round robin records right here. Marcio Carvalho 5-2, and then I believe it was 4-3 for Autumn.
Yep.
You had to have a positive record to make it into the top 4.
But Autumn played a different deck in that. Autumn played vampires, I believe. So now Autumn gets to have Shock and Chain Whirler and cards that are really powerful versus vampires. So again, really nice job by Autumn, audibling to the deck that beats what everybody played.
Yeah, and as they were saying, they're not particularly used to playing an aggro deck as their top choice?
No, not even a little bit. But that kind of shows you what's on the line and what they're trying to accomplish here, which is, you know what? Autumn won a Mythic Championship with Mono Blue aggro. This is pretty far from that. But if this is the best position deck to try to take down what you think players are doing, and Autumn believes that vampires are very popular and they have nailed that correctly, this is the opportunity to do that. Fry's going to be good out of the sideboard. Lava Coil's going to be pretty good out of the sideboard. The deck is tailor-made to do this. Now it's time to execute and see if this is actually going to happen.
Yeah, and I've got my Roman numerals. I'm a little mixed up. They're going to get the bye to day 2 of Mythic Championship 5, not 7. 7's coming. But not yet.
At some point.
Yeah.
At some point, number 7's going to come.
Those Roman numerals, and all the V's in the I's.
That's the thing about being a pro. You might have a style, like I personally prefer control decks, but I've been playing mostly mono red and red aggro for the past year because I've thought it was the best deck. Autumn is a professional Magic player, so they're going to choose whatever gives them the highest chance to win, even if they prefer decks like Control or a Nexus combo or things like that.
Yeah, you got to go with what the meta dictates. All right, well, we're ready to jump right into this game with Marcio Carvalho and Autumn Burchett.
Let's watch it unfold. Alrighty, folks, we're going to take a look at some opening hands here. Autumn has very quickly kept their hand. 3 Mountains of Fanatical Firebrand, Shock, Light at the Stage, Frenzy. Ben, seems like a pretty good hand.
It's a beautiful hand. Yeah. I mean, you're looking to have cheap disruption against vampires. You want to be able to kill their first couple drops. You've got Shock and Firebrand, and then you have your win condition, Experimental Frenzy. It's a near perfect hand.
This hand here for Marcio, he's going to mulligan down to 6, put a Champion of the Dusk on the bottom. There's some early plays here, but these are early plays that die pretty easily, and Vanguard is not at its best in this matchup.
No, the ability is really powerful against control. They try and play like a sweeper. You pay 4 life and keep it alive. But against Mono Red, you just can't keep paying 4 life every time they deal it a damage.
That's exactly what Mono Red wants to see happening. So Fanatical Firebrand's going to start things off there for Autumn. A second hit will bring Marcio down to 18, light up the stage. We'll get things underway here on turn number 2 after that attack. And if you're Autumn, you've even got another play there, another Fanatical Firebrand. You can leave Shock up if you want to, but I imagine we're going to deploy the little Knucklehead here.
Yeah, because you know next turn you can always play Steamkin and Shock. And you may not want to Shock, depending on whether or not there's a target. So you cast the Firebrand now, and then next turn you can use all 3 mana by playing Steamkin and then having Shock available.
Legion Lieutenant is a 2-mana spell, and of course exchanging with the 1-mana spell is where you want to be, so this Runaway Steamkin plus Shock turn looks real good now.
I mean, Autumn's deck is firing on all cylinders right now. Autumn's up cards, Autumn's up on the board.
Up on life.
Yeah, this is what Mono Red is built to do against vampires. You don't always draw this smooth, but this is textbook.
And to Vampire's credit, you know, Vampires has the ability to draw smoother than this. You know, this is a 3rd Champion of Dusk. We put 1 on the bottom, we've drawn 1. And in some matchups, Champion of Dusk is very good. I don't think this is where it's at its best, and it's rearing its ugly head right now.
Yeah, and Marcio took a mulligan and is on the draw first.
Yeah.
Like I said, Autumn has had like a near perfect hand on the play, so it should be textbook.
Yeah. We could see a Lightning Strike here to clear the path and just keep getting damage in. You know, if you Lightning Strike here, we're seeing an attack here for 5, and Steamkin's almost to the point where it's going to start churning out mana and just building a huge advantage. I'm curious, you know, for you, how does Marcio even get back in this game?
Oh, I don't think he can, but I'd rather talk about the interesting decision there between Frenzy and Lightning Strike,
Sure.
Because a lot of people might be tempted to slam Frenzy there. It's the most powerful card in your deck, and you have 4 mana. But by Lightning, you can't play cards in your hand after you play it, so you want to play your cards first if you can. And now this works perfectly for Autumn, because Steamkin's hitting 3 counters this turn, which means Autumn can then ritual out the Frenzy, be able to play lands off the top of their deck, have a lot of mana to work with, including some even after the 4-mana spell. So last turn, great play, definitely use the strike, wait the turn on Frenzy. This turn, you definitely Frenzy. What Autumn's thinking about now is whether to attack first or not, because the Steam King can attack now as a 4/4, and there's no guarantee how many spells you're going to hit after you put the Frenzy out.
Sounds like Fanatical Firebrands, plural, are going to go after Legion Lieutenant.
Absolutely the right play. Take out the Lieutenant, attack with both creatures for 6, post-combat, remove the 3 counters, play the Frenzy. You're in a good position if you're Autumn. You don't need to gamble. You don't need to get lucky. You're just taking the secure kill on their Lord that pumps the rest of their team, and now a bunch of damage, and post-combat, you'll see what you hit.
Well, one MPL member to the other. Calling Autumn's plays is Ben Stark and nailing it appropriately. Runaway Steamkin will remove some counters to cast the Experimental Frenzy, and now the draw is a Goblin Chain Whirl. Of course, can't cast that from the hand, but we can start playing off the top of the deck, and I think we're going to see quite the chain of events here from Autumn. Let's see if the deck does cooperate. Experimental Frenzy, of course, not the ideal find on the top of the deck. And so actually, I think we're brick-walled on this particular turn, but still in a very advantageous situation.
So even though that was the worst turn basically possible for Autumn, they're still in complete control. At 20 life, they're under no pressure. You see Marcio even just pack it in, because, and I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, this game is over.
Well, he just can't cast Champion of Dusk either. That's not even an option. He has 2 of those in his hand. So what he can do is go to the sideboard and immediately grab those Devout Decrease and some other options like Fona and bring those in.
Sure.
Any reason to maybe leave in Champion of Dusk? We saw it be very bad there, but it's probably the worst it's going to get. There are situations where I think it will be good.
So red has a lot of removal, and it's a way to gain card advantage. So I actually don't know if you cut all 4. You definitely cut some, because it's an expensive card, and you can't draw multiples of it against mono red. I think most likely Marcio will leave in 2 to 3 champions. I would be very surprised if he took out all 4, and I would be very surprised if he left in all 4.
How do you feel about Adanto Vanguard? It looks like he left in 2 copies of that card.
Well, Adanto Vanguard, as you said, isn't good in the matchup. It's a lot better on the play than the draw, because you tend to be ahead on life when you're on the play. I wouldn't be shocked to see him take those out for game 3 on the draw if it gets there. But it also just depends on what you have to bring in. It's a serviceable card. It's not unplayable, but it's certainly not good either.
Well, I don't know if every game's going to play out like that one did, because that was a beautiful draw there for Autumn, but you kind of get an idea of how this matchup is expected to go on Autumn's side. That's why they chose this deck.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, if you draw the cheap removal and then you're able to curve up into Frenzy while killing vampires, you are going to win.
Now, of course, there are matchups that Mono Red is not favored against, but if you're predicting the metagame correctly and Autumn played vampires in the early stages of this split in the Pearl Division, and you're thinking other people are going to do this, you can take the risk, you can take the gamble, and it's paying off at least through one game. A Mountainous start into a Geotu Lava Runner. No haste or +1/+0 just yet. for the little wizard. As we head back over to Marcio, started with an isolated chapel. We'll see a swamp next, it appears. You see the hand there of Legion's End, Legion's Landing, Cast Down, and Gideon Blackblade. Gideon coming in from the sideboard. Legion's End's going to trade here. 2 mana spell is going to take care of a 1 mana permanent. But the idea, I think, for Marcio is he wants a clear battlefield for the Gideon.
Right. Marcio is going to try and win this game with Gideon. That's the only power card in his hand. He's not going to win this game through aggression. He doesn't have a creature in play yet, and it's turn 3. So you kill Autumn's creature. Now that he drew Duress, you're going to see Duress. I would be very surprised if you saw Gideon this turn, because what Marcio is trying to do is clear the way as best as possible before playing Gideon.
Sure.
So now you have Duress and Cast Down online. You're going to take out Autumn's creatures, hope that Autumn's got some removal in hand and can't really mount an offensive, and then you could possibly win the game with Gideon Blackblade.
It's going to be a hard cast, light up the stage now, it looks like. 3 mana is not your favorite way to play it. Fanatical Firebrand and Mountain are the reveal, so those will work themselves into the equation next turn. But for now, Marcio's done exactly what he wanted to do. Clear the battlefield for Gideon. It's here on an empty battlefield. Legion's Landing will probably join it, and this is where he wants to be right now, Ben.
And this is what I love about the MPL and high-level Magic. This is what made it so that when I was sitting at home drafting, I came back to the Pro Tour and the Mythic Championship now. It's watching these players play so well where they don't just slam their Frenzy when they have 4 mana. They don't just slam their Gideon when they have 3, but they sculpt the perfect turn to optimize their best cards.
And now Autumn's got to try to catch up a little bit because this Gideon's going to start to reign over this game and over this battlefield. So Lava Coil doesn't love killing a 1/1 vampire token from Legion's Landing, but it's got to do something. Got to get some of these cards out of the hand and let Fanatical Firebrand start to get to work on Gideon. So that's what we're going to see. This is a pretty big draw step here for Marcio. He needs a spell. Drew a land, which is not ideal. So Gideon's got some real work to do here, Ben.
Yeah, and the reason that was a clear play for Autumn was because they have Frenzy now, and once you play Frenzy, you can't play spells from your hand, so Autumn is looking to empty their hand as quickly as they can so that they can then just get as much value on board before deploying Frenzy and seeing what the top of their deck gives them.
Gideon's going to come into the red zone there. Burchett is going to fall down to 16. Carvalho really needs to draw a spell at this point. A 5th land in hand is not ideal. Something like a Vona or a Champion in Dusk would be good. Here's a Goblin Chain Whirler off the top for your Mythic Championship 1 champion in Autumn Burchett. The Fanatical Firebrand will come in for 1. Going to knock Gideon back down to 4 loyalty counters. The Chain Whirler is going to bring it down to 3 and ding Marcio as well down to 19. And I think we might see the shock.
No,
in
you
just a
shouldn't see the
second.
shock. There's,
No?
I don't. Well, oh yeah, you can't do it on the opponent's turn. So
Correct.
Right. So Autumn is thinking, I could get more value out of this shock if Marcio draws a creature. I'd rather shock that. But if I don't draw a land next turn, I might want to slam Frenzy. So do I use the shock right now, or do I hold on to it? Is a really close, hard decision.
Also, in the back of Autumn has two. In the back of Autumn's head too. Excuse me, is the Lava Coil that could kill the subsequent creature as well.
Yeah,
right?
so I don't think I would use the shock. It looks like Autumn's gonna. That might be one of the first plays I disagree with. Gideon's about to go to 4, and you have 4 points of power on the board.
Okay.
So there's not really that much value in shocking Gideon.
Well, thinking about it. Okay, gonna fire it off.
It's a close play,
Sure.
for sure. But I think my inclination would be not to use the shock there.
Well, we were wondering if Marcio was going to draw a creature. The answer is no. He drew a swamp to go along with that plane. So Gideon is still working overtime here.
So with Marcio flooding out like this, drawing another land, this Autumn's in complete control. Autumn's going to attack out Gideon next turn, drop Frenzy, under no pressure, still going to be at 12 life, which is very comfortable. So, I mean, I would think this is going to be a near impossible game for Marcio to win.
Gia2 Lava Runner was the draw. It looks like Marcio is going to be losing his Gideon here in just a moment. Only on 2 loyalty is the powerful 3-mana Planeswalker. But one of the things I really like about this is it would be very easy, as you mentioned, to just say, hey, just let's attack that thing and not think our playthrough. But there's some thinking to be done here, and it looks like Lava Runner instead of Frenzy is where it's going to
And
start.
I love this play by Autumn, and here's why. If Autumn knew Marcio was holding the card Plains, Autumn would play Experimental Frenzy here for sure.
Sure.
But how can Marcio win this game? Well, what if Marcio has a removal spell? Marcio has Mortifies and Cast Downs in his deck. If Autumn doesn't play the Lava Runner and attacks the Gideon with both creatures, or just the Chain Whirler, Marcio might kill the Chain Whirler with Mortify or Cast Down. The Gideon will not be able to be killed this turn. Then Autumn has to play Experimental Frenzy, and if the top of their library is unkind to them, they may end up losing the game to Gideon plus some good draws by Marcio.
Now we're finally going to see that Frenzy. So much patience before deploying the very powerful enchantment. Here come the attacks. Marcio is going to fall even lower, down to 12. And with another Godless Shrine off the top of the deck, if it wasn't over before, I think it's almost certainly over now.
Yeah, another very expert level play there. Lava Runner's a lot less powerful than Frenzy, but if you remove that Gideon, you are not under pressure and you can just Frenzy next turn. So you do not want to risk Marcio having top deck cast down and then untapping and drawing another good spell and being able to turn this game with Gideon plus what he draws.
It'll be a lightning strike and a good game clicked. Autumn Burchett is moving on to the finals of the Pearl Division. For someone who doesn't play a lot of monocolored aggressive strategies like I do, and you recently, I'd say they did pretty good.
They chose an excellent deck. They played it extremely well. They're going to be a favorite in each individual match. The question is, can they string together 3 straight wins, now 2 straight wins, to take this thing?
Well, both of these players will be invited to be citizens in the land of GG with those emotes you saw at the end of the game. Looked like it was emotionally tough for Carvalho there, losing to his friend and then just a quick demise against the Mono Red.
Well, in my opinion, that's exactly how Autumn expects things to go. And I don't know if the games are going to play out to that extreme of nature every time because Marcio's draws didn't really cooperate. But I do think the matchup was quite poor for Vampires.
Yeah, Marcio did have very poor draws.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair here, I am happy to assert that Mono Red is a favorite against Vampires, but Marcio drew multiple champions, as you pointed out, in Game 1, and then in Game 2 got flooded. So I wouldn't look at that match and go, wow, Vampires can never beat Mono Red. Those were very poor draws by Marcio, but I do like Autumn's side of the matchup.
And that means I like Autumn's side of the matchup for the next one we're going to watch here in just a little bit against Carlos.
Absolutely, and also very good draws for Autumn. And Autumn has shared their thoughts with Paul Chian, so we have that interview for you now.
Hello, and I am joined here by the winner of the lower bracket, Autumn Burchett, just completely dominating Marcio 2-0 in that last match. I mean, did those games just kind of go exactly how you felt they would?
It's kind of a combination of 2 things, or a few things even. Marcio had some pretty awkward draws. Definitely not the most impressive showings as that can give. I managed to stick a Frenzy in play, which was great. He didn't draw any of the really high impact cards against me. He didn't draw Sorin, he didn't draw Champion of Dusk or Vona, which are both pretty scary cards from my side. And on top of that, my draws were just very strong. They were exactly what I want in the matchup. Kill your creatures, maintain the board, land a Frenzy, you don't have an answer, I win the game.
So now you're going to have to go up against Carlos Ramao, and because this is double elimination, you're going to have to beat him twice. Now, I just want to kind of get a quick sense for, not only just the double elimination, but the fact that the winner of this division gets kind of a bye into the second day of the event, right? Like how much, I think people watching just need to kind of get a better understanding of what exactly that means.
Oh, it's absurd. Just like, I think the structure is changing very slightly for the next Arena MC. I'm not 100% sure, but I know the previous one, like, you get those buys into day 2, suddenly the field of 60 odd people is down to 16. You've just like immediately jumped into the top quarter of the field, which is just huge. It means, a few thousand more dollars in prizes. It means all those extra points that people are trying to collect up. It's really massive. Like, I think in the last split, I definitely didn't put my all into the preparation because I kind of underestimated how big the reward was. But this time round, knowing how huge it is and how important it is, what a big leg up it gives you on the rest of the competition. I've just been trying really hard to make sure I have the right decks and know them inside and out.
Of course, it also helps that you get to kind of play out all your matches within the 1 week. So, you probably spend a little more time to prepare because this kind of feels like one actual big tournament, right?
Yeah, I found that aspect a lot easier. It's kind of hard to put your all into, like, okay, what's the perfect deck for this week, or the meta game I expect, and then just play one match. Whereas, like, this time round, in the Swiss portion, or round robin portion rather, there are 7 matches, and you're facing the entirety of the meta game that is in that round robin pod, so, like, your meta game calls just matter more. And then in the top 4, you're, like, if you're going to win it, you're playing, like, 3 or 4 matches, depending on where you start in the bracket and your route through. It makes every ounce of preparation you put in matter that much more.
Right. I mean, it almost feels like kind of preparing for, a Grand Prix tournament or a Mythic Championship tournament, it feels like.
Yeah. I would say, like, between the round robin portion and the top 4 portion, I probably put, like, a similar amount of prep into this that I would put into a Grand Prix. So, I'm taking it seriously.
As you should. All right. Well, you have 2 more rounds potentially to play against Carlos Ramao in the finals. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That's right. Autumn is moving on to the grand finals. And so are we soon. But before that, a little game I like to play called Pack One, Pick One's coming up. So you, genius minds, knowers of magics, can teach me a little something right here in person. So here's a pack. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go with the Mythic Rare.
Well, the Mythic Rare is powerful, but it is really hard to cast. And really, it's not powerful enough to justify the casting cost. So I wouldn't go with the Mythic Rare, but I understand why that would be something that would catch your eye. I think there's some really good cards in this pack that are easy to cast and good in a lot of decks. Chandra's Outrage, Blood for Bones would be the cards I would look at. I think Blood for Bones is better than Chandra's Outrage, and it's very easy to splash as well. So my pick out of this pack would be Blood for Bones, followed up by Chandra's Outrage.
Okay.
How does Rabid Bite line up for you in this pack? Is that something that you're interested in, or is Outrage and Blood for Bones like just much better than those cards?
I found Rabid Bite to be solid but nothing special in this format.
Okay.
There's a lot of good instant removal, so it's not always the easiest to Rabid Bite away what you want when you want.
Okay.
I'm never cutting it from my deck, of course.
Of course.
But I tend to even take Leafkin Druid over it sometimes, depending on what I have and what my deck needs. I don't see Rabid Bite as necessarily an auto first pick removal. I see it as a good card. But similar to how I was describing Cryptic Caves, it's in that like 3rd through 6th pick quality card. I'm looking to first pick cards that generate card advantage in this format efficiently, like Blood for Bones, or a good efficient removal like Chandra's Outrage.
There's a little card advantage built in Chandra's Outrage too, because the 2 damage can matter, right?
Sure.
So it's a small thing. It's not a full card, but it doesn't hurt.
Sure, and a lot of the creatures aren't very big, so for 4 mana, you're often able to take out their 4 or 5 drop in this format.
Fair enough.
Okay, new pack, new picks. Let's see. Ooh. I'm gonna go with, I like the Bloodthirsty Aerialist, but that's just because it's in my vampire deck.
A more reasonable nomination out of this pack, Bloodthirsty Aerialist is excellent. It wouldn't be my choice, but it is excellent. Cloudkin Seer, I think some people are starting to take it over removal, like Chandra's Outrage, Everything But Murder. I think that the efficient removal is really important in this format, and sometimes the card advantage doesn't pan out, so I take Chandra's Outrage over Cloudkin Seer, but Cloudkin Seer is the best blue common. I think it's a little bit better than Bloodthirsty Aerialist. It's easier to cast, and when it dies, you go up a card. But actually, this time, I would go with the rare. Loxodon Life Chanter is very powerful. So for 6 mana, you give it +X, where X is equal to your life total. That makes it a walking abyss. It basically has to get blocked every turn, or the opponent's gonna die. They're never gonna be able to kill it in combat, because it's just gonna be too big. Also, if you're falling behind, if your opponent's got a good start and they get you low, it's gonna gain you a ton of life. It counts its own 6 toughness. So if you have out like a 4/4 and a 3/3 and you play that, you can reset your life total to 13. From a life total like 13, you are not dying and limited on your opponent's turn, and then you get to start attacking with a creature that must be chump blocked every turn for the rest of the game. So Bloodthirsty Aerialist, definitely one of the better cards in this pack, probably my 3rd choice. My 1st choice would be Life Chanter, my 2nd would be Cloudkin Seer, and then I think Aerialist and Pacifism are pretty close after that.
How does Bronodon match up?
I'm not actually huge on Bronzodon. This isn't really a format about vanilla creatures. This is a format about value. So, I mean, if you fly like Aerialist and can easily turn into a 3/4 or 4/5 flyer for 3 mana, that's a powerful card. Life Chanter's a game-winning card. Cloudkin Seer is a flyer that gives you a card. Look, Bronzodon's an efficient creature. It's a fine card. But for me, it's probably about 5th out of this pack.
Okay.
I've never played with a Life Chanter before. You do a ton of drafts. I don't.
Life Chanter is fantastic.
It looks very good, and one thing that's also worth noting is that I don't know how often this comes up because it's white, but it's splashable.
Right.
Only solo in the mana cost and solo in the activation. That's probably matters quite a bit.
Single white in a format where green has Gifts of Paradise, where there's the full cycle of dual lands.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's pretty easy if you end up like a blue-black control deck and you need a win condition to go ahead and put that Life Chanter in it. It's pretty easy if you play green. It's just all around a very good card.
Yeah, just your analysis of that, the fact that it's going to gain a bunch of life, and then pretty much every turn, you're activating that thing, it's probably getting, what, +7, +7, +8, +8, and all of a sudden, that's a hit for 11, 12 points of damage, and limited, you really can't afford to take one of those, maybe even two. Like, maybe the first one you can take, you're at 20, you fall down to 7, but then it's like, okay, I have to block every turn. So.
Yeah. Well, there's a little insight into what these two would pick from a pack. And if you're not drafting on Arena, what are you doing? It's the best way to get free packs. And then you can get some of those wild cards. Now, we want to tell you one more time what you can do if you are interested in seeing some of this round-robin tournament play that led us to the bracket we're in today. So check out these new features, Magic Esports site. We've got the full roster of all our players right here. And then we can find the results from every match in the core split play by clicking on results there, where you can see we're in the Pearl division, and check it all out at magic.gg. That's Carvalho versus Hauk right there. You can see all your favorite players and see exactly how they got to where they are.
And the nice thing too is this is going to be updating over the course of every single split that's going to be taking place over the next handful of weeks. So I would bookmark it, because you're probably going to be busy over there. And I guess what you're going to be.
Yeah, I'll be playing in a few weeks.
And watch this guy.
And I really love this format compared to the last one, because it feels like 1 week-long Magic tournament that's exciting, that's meaningful. You can check the updates.
You can play without pants.
You can play wearing sweatpants from your home, like I have every single match I've ever played.
Yeah.
Additionally, the top 4 is a sweet tournament. It's quick, it's exciting, and there's a lot on the line. So I'm really looking forward to my week.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you play, and we're going to jump into our final game of the day in a short amount of time, but first we have a little break for you.